We were on our way back home from a Christmas dinner. One that I hadn't even wanted to go to, but you do a lot of crazy things when you are in a new relationship. My girlfriend Marcy's family lives upstate and haven't seen her for over 6 months because of the pandemic. So with the holiday break giving us plenty of time to quarantine, she twisted my arm to go visit. Honestly, the fact that we have managed to get through all the craziness that 2020 has given us, I was just glad that we hadn't broken up yet. It felt like our being together was a holiday miracle. But to be honest, it's actually because I was lying to her. We actually were extremely in debt, and this trip was just going to sink us into the hole even deeper. But I've never been too great at handling problems head on, so I tucked my tail behind my legs and pushed my car to the limit. My little Honda Accord has always been a real trooper, and normally I can gauge when it's time to find a gas station. But like I said, money was tight and I was pushing my foot down on the pedal to make it back home, hoping against all odds I would be able to make it. Of course, that didn't happen. Instead, Marcy had found a shortcut across a different country to make it home, which required that we pass over an old bridge, the Briarwood. That thing doesn't look stable, I admitted, looking at the rusting metal as the sun set over the wide lake that it crossed. It's that or we turn around and lose 15 miles, Marcy said with a sigh. She was getting irritated, and I think she was starting to suspect that there was a reason I had chosen to ignore every chance at filling the Accord up so far. So we started across, and honestly it seemed like it wasn't going to be so sad. But then about 3 minutes across the lake, the car sputtered and the engine died, and I knew it was time to pull over. As we came to a stop and the warning lights came on, Marcy sighed. I told you that we have gone to the Flying J, she said. Then she tried to start googling tow trucks. No signal over the water, she muttered in frustration. We sat there for a few seconds as I puzzled over what to do. It was at least 2 miles back the way we came, and probably the same to reach the other side of the bridge. We were smack dab in the middle and the night was starting to fall. We are going to have to walk, I decided, as I felt a chill in the air. The darkness was starting to close in and the lake didn't seem so beautiful anymore. Vince, wait, something feels off, Marcy said, grabbing my hand and looking a little concerned. I opened my mouth to reassure her when I noticed that it seemed like there was an unusual amount of fog on the road that hadn't been there before. Well, we can't just stay here, I told her. Someone will come right by, Marcy suggested. I sighed and decided not to argue, sitting back and looking at the dials on the car and trying to get a better signal with my own phone. 10 minutes passed by. The entire bridge seemed to fade away. I couldn't see more than 2 feet in front of us before long. It's late. I should try to see if I can go find a gas station, I told Marcy. This time she grabbed my hand harder and shook her head. It doesn't feel safe, Vince. Don't leave me here alone, she insisted. We've been out here a while, Marcy. No one is coming, I pointed out. Just as I finished speaking, though, 2 bright headlights appeared from the opposite side of the bridge. Quick, flash our hazards. Maybe they'll stop, she told me. I did as she instructed and looked towards the road for any sign of oncoming vehicle. Instead, I saw something that gave me a start. It looked like a wide-legged creature just over the side of the bridge, with arms that were bent over like mantis pincers with sharp edges running all over the body. And the bright light we thought were traffic were actually its eyes. Holy shit! I turned to lights off and kept completely still as I watched the glowing eyes in the fog. Marcy didn't say a word. We both watched wordlessly as whatever this thing was moved over the side of the bridge and made this low bellowing noise. Then there was a sound of shrieking and skittering near the edge of our car. "What the hell?" I shouted as I felt our vehicle start to shake. Suddenly, this long and thin slithering tentacle entered the side of my driver's window and started to smash against the ceiling. In a split second, I realized that Marcy had her window down still. "Roll it up! Hurry!" I shouted as I turned the key over again to activate the car battery. At the same time, the headlights came on and I saw a better view of the creature's face. It reminded me of a bulldog, with strange mouths in the middle of its face where its snout should have been. Its reflective eyes were attached to spiny antennae, where more of the crab features that seemed to be emerging from its body were crawling towards us. One of them got inside and started to rip into Marcy's arm as she screamed. Instinctively, she unbuckled and got out of the car. I screamed for her to stop, but everything happened so quickly I couldn't see where she went. She fell back into sight as I finished rolling the window up, the crab moving towards me with a hissing noise. I slammed my fist into its mouth as Marcy ran towards the road trying to escape. "Get back in the car," I screamed. Then I heard another ominous noise from somewhere in the lake and the creature seemed to retreat. There was another threat close by that they were afraid of, I realized. It sounded huge. I couldn't see Marcy, so all I could think was to activate the car alarm and maybe distract whatever was about to kill us. But even that wasn't working. I was about to jump out when I heard a scream again. Then I saw her rushing towards me. Her face looked like it has been chewed off, and she was covered in green slime that looked like it was petrifying her body. "Vince, help me!" she shouted. I opened the door and grabbed her arm, pulling her in and helping her to the passenger side as the remainder of the crabs skittered away. She was desperately trying to keep the strange slime from spreading, but it was moving so fast I was sure it was going to absorb her in a matter of seconds. "Do something!" she screamed as she slammed her arm against the window, but nothing was knocking it away from her body. That was the noise that attracted the sound monster. This one wasn't so subtle. Its large paws smashed through her window and grabbed her like a massive gorilla, and I watched in horror as she was hoisted up in the sky, screaming all the way, only silencing by the sickening crunch of her bones as she was tossed into the unseen creature's mouth. I sat there, stunned by fear as the monster moved away from me. I only could think that because the car was completely silent now, that it didn't detect my presence. I stayed there, frozen by the paralyzing despair of losing Marcy and by what I had seen until morning. As the sun rose over Briarwood, I found myself looking at the blood-stained seat where Marcy had been. Then I heard another bizarre noise, another creature out on the hunt. I started scrambling to the back to avoid looking at it. Instead, I hunkered down and hid as the monster's shadow loomed over my vehicle. I could smell its putrid breath. Then all of a sudden, the accord was lifted up. I clung to the side of the door and said a prayer to God. If there was one out there watching over me, I begged him to keep me safe. Then I saw the glowing purple iris of a scaly creature and heard its bellowing roar. Bits of blood and skin stuck on my body, remnants of the monster's last meal. A mixture of familiar perfume jarred me to the reality that this was the same beast that killed Marcy. I could only think of one thing to do. I opened the door and leapt into the water. To be honest, I'm not sure what happened after that. I figure my head must have hit a rock because I fell unconscious. When I did wake up, I was at shore and miles away from the bridge. I could still smell the guts of Marcy on me, from where the creature had discarded her intestines like Lude's food. I walked for miles. There didn't seem to be anyone in sight. Eventually, I came across a diner on the side of the road and flagged for help. When I told the waitress about my experience, she didn't seem surprised. "You're lucky you made it across at all. There's a reason that bridge is closed," she told me. I felt lucky that she at least believed me. But as I sit here and watch the time slowly tick by, I think I've realized she is going to be the only one. I survived, but I doubt anyone out there will think that I wasn't the murderer of Mercy. There's no evidence to suggest otherwise. Which is why I'm going to make one last foolish purchase, a rental car. I'm going to cross that bridge again. Maybe I will make it and maybe I won't. But either way, I'll feel like I have found a way to prove the truth.